One of the most athletic super heavyweights in the history of professional wrestling, a tremendous big man, a career cut all too short due to various issues, a monster in the ring, and a sweetheart outside of it that was a tremendous family man. Bonsai! I'm John Renton with my review of WWE on A&E Biography, WWE Legends on Yokozuna. You know, a lot of this seemed familiar, and then I realized that WWE did an Icons episode on Yokozuna, and a lot of this footage really did seem familiar. It's pretty much the same story cut down to 50-hour-long format, and I think that was around 75 minutes or something like that. It was a well-told story, and looking at Yokozuna's career, Rodney Anawahi, it's amazing actually how much he packed into a short run. Because you have to wonder what would have happened had he kept his weight under control. Had he been able to maybe get down to a manageable 400 pounds, 350 pounds. Who's to say that he couldn't still been, maybe he couldn't have been Yokozuna, but he could have turned it around. I mean, think about where Rikishi went. Yes, Rikishi's weight did balloon up, but he went from being, wild Samoan SWAT team to being, man stuck his ass in people's faces. But Yokozuna, 11-year-old me was absolutely terrified of him. Absolutely terrified. I was like, holy shit, this is the biggest man I've ever seen. And I had seen King Kong Bundy, or at least seen tape of him, because he hadn't come back to WWF yet like he would in late 94, early 95. But I did write down initially, didn't WWE do one of these 2 years ago? And also, I'm glad that they're trying to feature as many people as possible, but I don't get these hour-long editions, at least on most people. Like the Jerry Lawler one, good, bad, or indifferent, however you feel about him. Just career alone would have dictated 2 hours, and you still wouldn't have scratched the surface on all the shit he did. With Yoko, it does make sense to do an hour, but a lot of this was treading familiar ground. Yoko's daughter on the beach with his grandson that she named after him. Incredibly talented big man. Taker chimed in. Hogan chimed in just to make it seem like Hogan was somebody that helped launch him, even though Hogan would work with the big guy because he couldn't work with Bret, because Bret would have taken the shine off of him, because Bret was actually a lot better in the ring than Hogan could ever hope to be. But the overeating did end up doing in Yokozuna, as far as career and unfortunately as far as his life. He passed away at the age of 34. I don't know if he would have continued to wrestle. WWE probably would have kept him around if he had been able to keep his weight under control, but I don't know if his career would have, reached those heights again, lack of, weight loss or not. But at least he would have had a longer life, and his children would have been able to be there with him. So it starts in LA. Rikishi, Rikishi refers to the gang culture there, that Yoko's dad was very hard-nosed, was in the service, wanted to make sure Yoko got an education, but Yoko kind of was a little flimsy about that. Sister chimed in about how he got sent to Afonseca's school because they had training schools in Florida, Pensacola specifically. We see a little footage of that, and also Pennsylvania. It was cool to see this old footage that Yoko, never quit. He kept doing well, but he was, a big Samoan guy. And the Samoans, it's like it's bred into them before they get out of the goddamn womb, that they're just naturally athletic and good at this. At the very least, good. Like, some don't last long due to personal reasons or whatever, but they're all such great athletes. Southern Pro Wrestling was somewhere in Florida. You got to see a little bit of Sir Oliver Humperdinck, or the Big Kahuna. I forget what he was called in Florida, because I know he went by both. Sometime in 87, we got to see a little footage of him as Coquina Maximus wrestling against the Wyndhams, Barry and Kendall. And brief time in the AWA, I always forget about the fact that he was in the AWA. And it's the unfortunate thing about the AWA, because if Vern had just been a little bit smarter and been willing to work with talents a little bit more, a little better, and not be such a stingy prick, you have to wonder if the AWA would have at least lasted a little bit longer. Maybe the territory would just aged out, but featuring some new talent was going to be the lifeblood, but unfortunately, it was way too late for the AWA. I mean, you take a look at some of the people they were featuring in the early 80s. Once they lost Hogan, even though they were featuring some people, Road Warriors and stuff, it's hard to believe the AWA even lasted until 1991, technically, though I think their last TV tapings were sometime in 1990. Anyway, Sean Mooney. Holy fuck, Sean Mooney is what I wrote down. I mean, it's not that Sean Mooney hasn't been on some form of a wrestling program. I believe he was on NWA Power for a time. I like Sean Mooney. I always remember the Bobby Heenan line, or Gorilla Monsoon. Let's go back to Sean Mooney. Bobby Heenan, who? And that was great. That was great. Because Bobby Heenan could make anybody seem... He can make anybody seem important. And, I mean, I'm not knocking Sean Mooney, but just with that. Sean Mooney? Well, I don't like Heenan. Let me pay attention to Sean Mooney. And it worked. Rodney and Hawaii, Yoko, had 2 children by age 21, 22. Vince McMahon, is perpetually, drawn to big guys. Yeah, we fucking know that. We know that. Oh, there's a lot of beef out here. Ha ha. Dark match at a Superstars taping on September 1st, 1992. Coquina Maximus, whatever it was. He was a big Samoan guy, and he's athletic, and he's beating guys. But Vince is like, I already got Samoans. I mean, I got enough. Sergeant Slaughter is brainstorming and came up with the idea of the sumo wrestler. Credit Sergeant Slaughter for that. And everybody's eyes lit up and everything, especially often Sika and Yoko, and then the Yokozuna gimmick debuted, Mr. Fuji being his manager, which made sense. I mean, you think about Mr. Fuji, him being a multi-time tag team champion, him managing the Powers of Pain, managing other people. Fuji, English wasn't his strong point, but he could get the point across as far as being devious, and that's why shortly into Yoko's main event run, like when he was champion, Jim Cornette was brought in to be the American spokesperson, because Fuji's promos weren't all that great, but also it made sense to get somebody like Jim Cornette, who, well-spoken, great promo, could always get anger from the fans, and because of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling relationship, it was great for that. Now, but on October 31st, so Halloween night, 1992, I wrote that 11-year-old me was terrified. This footage, he could move so well for a big guy. Bret Hart had tremendous praise for him. Bret loved working with Yoko, and you could tell. Because Yoko always took care of him. I mean, it's amazing that he dropped that leg drop, and he would, as opposed to not dropping a leg drop, and hitting the bonsai drop and doing all that. It's amazing that he never actually hurt people, even getting into the big weight that he was, because he would have killed somebody. Landing like that. That's just how good he was, and how much of a natural he was. And then how he was backstage. He was always blasting music. It was always a joy backstage. The eating, the vignette at the steakhouse, he ate enough for 20 people. Rumble 93 win. I will still never understand why Randy Savage covered Yokozuna when pinfalls don't count. And Savage had been in enough Rumbles to know that and been around in wrestling for, at that point, about 20 years. But nevertheless, Mania 9 push. Him being brought in on, I think it was one of those pole carriages. Fuji there, and hooray, WrestleMania 9. Hulk Hogan cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase that didn't exist yet. Making Bret look like an idiot, making Yoko and Fuji look like idiots. All for Hogan to win the title. Then condemn it, face off against Great Muta, say the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship is a whole lot better. And then King of the Ring 93 win, where I did not realize that Yoko actually shouted his son's name. When he did the bonsai drop, on this particular pay-per-view. That was sweet. That was good stuff. That's the kind of good thing about, WWE and A&E's production. They can find these Easter eggs, find the stuff. That was cool. And the family watching that, the son, the daughter, and the Holy Spirit. I mean, the grandson right there. And it was cool to, see that Yoko being the champion. It just would have been nice if Yoko had been able to be the champion from Mania 9 to Mania 10. Not taking that detour with King of the Ring 93. Because he could have beaten Hogan right there, beaten him again and cemented the fact that, okay, it's really dead, and he could have held it for a year. I mean, yes, he ended up holding it for 9.5 months, but still. And the media tour, Cornette in the neck brace after Bolt Bob Armstrong pile drove him on, oh God, it was one of the goddamn Smoky Mountain shows. I can't remember the name of it. He's talked about it on his podcast. But SummerSlam 93, they showed a little bit of footage, but they skipped over the fact that Yokozuna lost by a countout, and Lex Luger celebrated with the balloons and the confetti and everything like he had won the presidency. And everybody's applauding until they realize, you dumb fuck, you didn't win the title. Yoko took care of his family. Rikishi told the emotional story about how he poured everything into a new house, but needed to get new heat. And his wife and child were cold. And Yoko wrote him a blank check and said, here, do it. Because Yoko was great like that. And Rikishi has told that story, and he's always been emotional. And that means something. Family means something. And Yoko always took care of his family. His extended family, whatever. It did not matter. He would take care of people. And he took care of his kids. Cornette got one piece here. And that was from a while ago, I think, when they interviewed him right around the Hall of Fame. Because he looks different now. Mentions Yoko's dominance as a monster heel. Back-to-back main events in Mania 9, Mania 10, but then the weight was taking hold. He was starting to slow down. They totally skipped over him and Owen Hart as a tag team, which, I mean, I guess I could sort of understand, considering they probably don't want to anger Martha, but maybe Vince McMahon should have paid a better company to lower Owen to the ring, or they should have done that stunt at all. First of all, I resent your tone. He hated the traveling because he was so big. He broke a toilet at one point. He was eating turkey giblets or turkey ass, dipping it in mayo. Bruce talked about how they sent him to Duke University. The weight loss, he didn't want to travel there, but he would do the program at home. Even though they showed him training, he came back bigger. New York State Athletic Commission would not license him. 1997, I believe Keith Greenberg mentioned, they had to let him go because he couldn't work in New York, and that was a big, big deal for WWE or WWF at the time for their market. If their commission wouldn't license him, then there are other state athletic commissions, so it would be limited where they could have him go and what they were paying him. And the fact he was unwilling to take care of himself and they'd given him chances, they had no choice but to let him go. Savio mentions how he would nod on and off. And then indie appearances, his training school, the UK tour in 2000. He teamed with Greg Valentine. Greg Valentine said him and Yoko bonded. But then unfortunately, during that tour, October, I believe they said October 24th, 2000. 23rd, 24th, he called family, talked to him, but he went to sleep, and he never woke up. I remember being very shocked by that, because, at 19, I was 19 years old. I was just thinking, my God, 34? What? How is Yoko dead? Because I knew he was big, and I knew that wasn't healthy. I mean, I think anybody could have told you that. But still, the fact that he was dead, at 34. And had he lost some weight, had he been able to control it, you would have had to have wondered how much further his career, more importantly, his life would have gone. He may still be living now. I don't know necessarily, actually. I mean, he would be 57 now, 56, 57. And even if he dropped that weight, that put a big toll on his body, but he at least would have been able to see his kids grow up. He would have been able to do something. He packed a hell of a lot into a short career. 2-time WWE champion when he should have just been a 1-time champion and held it for a year. Tag team championship run with Owen from Mania 11 to one of the In Your Houses, I believe, in September of 1995. Yoko packed a hell of a lot into a goddamn run, and he should be remembered. He definitely should be remembered as one of the most talented big men in the history of wrestling. Rest in peace, Yoko. Rest in peace. What are your favorite Yokozuna memories? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Wetland. I'll see you soon.